This is my review of Penn and Teller in Las Vegas. That's right, they're the most famous, longest tenured magicians in Las Vegas. And I actually just saw their show. I raced back home and now I'm recording my review of the show. Overall, let's not, waste any time. I think you should see the show. I enjoyed it a lot. I'm going to, not hold back because I don't know if you would trust me if all I did was give positive feedback. I know Penn and Teller might love that, but I'll give you a little bit of things that I thought were all right or could be better. There wasn't a lot of that, to be honest. And then things I really liked, and then just give you a full review of the show without spoiling anything or going into any details. I'll keep it pretty vague, just so that, I don't give away the whole show without having paid for a ticket, They wouldn't like that. Anyhow, first off, I really liked their playful branding and style. You see that throughout the show, and they have a very unique style in the sense that throughout the show, they will call out that, hey, this is not real magic, it's a trick. And, they'll say, like, this is, we're doing this through the rules of physics and space and all that stuff. So they're not the type of magician to be like all like mysterious with the music and the mist, and then just like, not talk, and then, a dove comes out of their hands, and then like a few more doves come out, and then it's inexplicable, and then it's implied that it's magic. No, they're very, well, Penn is very talkative, and he just like, is kind of like cuts through it and says, hey, it's just tricks. And so I can see why that style may have been unique and worked in the past, because maybe all the other competition was doing all this stuff, and then just being frank about it, maybe just plays more into how smart people are in the modern world or whatnot. But it was a unique style that I noticed. And then there were even times when he would call out more specifics about it. So I kind of like that in certain instances, where he would call out certain things that would potentially be called out by skeptics in the audience. So, throughout the show, he might be like, hey, I'm not going to touch the card. I'm not going to even get close to you because I would switch that bastard out in a second. Or I might force a card, so I'm not going to touch it. Or I could also do this, and he would say a concept that I wasn't even sure what it was, but he said, if I touched the card or got close to you, then I could do like a visual force with my hand or something, or I can't remember the term. So, he was kind of calling out things almost preemptively before the audience could be skeptical about it. So I could see how that unique method could kind of pierce through the crowd in a way, in a world where magicians weren't doing that. Now, maybe I'm old school at heart, but part of me does want to see a return to a show like that, where it's more just kind of like, mystery, and then, illusions, and then boom and boom. And I will say that Teller does do some of that, but I would love to see it like even more so in just like a actual showcase where, it's not being called out all the time, just like, mystery, like, boom, and then he's gone, boom, and then he, chops a man in half or something. But this was more of kind of like we live in the real world of, science and stuff. Here's how it works. I really enjoyed the show, though. He does a lot of really cool routines. There's a lot of humor and playfulness in the show. So it's much more of a kind of like whimsical, playful, jokey show than, some of the others. And that's part of the branding too. So, they'll do some gag magic tricks. I won't reveal them, but they'll do them intentionally bad, where like, how it's being done to kind of get a laugh out of you. And I think that's kind of fun too. It's not just about like wowing you. Like, they're also, at least this show is also in the art of really making you just laugh. And so there's some of that in there too. And yeah, I think um, overall it was really interactive and fun. I mean, probably more interactive than Shin Lim's show. Um, they constantly had people in the audience come up for maybe the 7 or 8 skits they did, and it was really cool to see. So it was super interactive with the audience. They had stuff where you're passing items, balloons between audience members. They had things where you wrote something down, crumbled it up, and threw it up on stage. And so it was really fun to see that. And perhaps in the modern world, that is what's needed, where he calls out skeptics. Because towards the end of the show, he does something really cool, which is he kind of says, like, hey, we've gotten a lot of call outs and Yelp reviews and stuff like that, that people think there are stooges in the audience. And so we just call up stooges who have the whole routine memorized and they're playing along. And then he does a whole magic trick with the skeptics in the audience. He's like, okay, he basically calls out anyone who thinks that there's a stooge. And he brings them up and then does another trick with them to prove that there aren't any stooges. So I found that pretty noble and awesome. Now, are there still stooges? Who knows? I wasn't fully convinced because I think his main argument was like, you know, we called up so many people, they couldn't all been stooges because that's a massive payroll. That's like, you know, 20, 30 people. But maybe 1 or 2 of them were stooges and then the rest weren't. So there are ways of tricking the audience still if you really wanted to be nefarious in that way. But I did kind of feel his passion with what he said. So just based off the passion, even though there were some holes in his argument, I think, you know, he really doesn't have stooges. Him and you know, I think some of my favorite, my favorite routines done in the show were actually by Teller, the one who doesn't talk, and they were all like sleight of hand tricks. Now, something about the inventiveness of them was kind of cool. You know, obviously you have Shin Lim, who's incredible with sleight of hand too, but they just are so inventive with their sleight of hand that it's just more fun and interesting to watch sometimes. So they have a whole routine where there's a whole band playing, Penn's playing on the guitar, and they're literally doing a song while he's doing this sleight of hand and like pulling out all this crazy stuff from nowhere. And then he does another one with this grandma from the audience and just generates all this stuff. I'm not going to tell you exactly what happens or what not to not spoil it, but he's generating all this stuff from what seems like nowhere. And it's crazy to see. Even live animals he's able to generate. So it's incredible to see. And that's the one I love the most. It's about an hour and a half, hour 45-minute show. It starts a little bit after 8. The official time's 8, but you know, you have to give people time to come through the concession stand and, you know, find the theater. And by the way, the theater is amazing as well. It's literally like it's in the Rio, at least it is right when I saw it. And the Rio is this, you know, almost like tropical type of flamingo type of themed hotel. You cut through the casino there. I think the casino is actually pretty nice. It's a little bit old, but like still pretty nice. And then you cut through there, you go to the Penn and Teller Theater. And it's just, you know, the hallway into it, it's almost like a shopping mall because there's like different stores where you could buy like clothing, souvenirs and stuff. Right? That's how they get you. It's literally like a posh shopping mall. And then you cut through this maze, you get to the Penn and Teller Theater. And it's literally like themed for Penn and Teller. There's literally like a statue after you like get past the usher and scan your ticket. There's a whole concession stand with like the big Penn and Teller symbol. There's food and so this theater is literally dedicated to Penn and Teller. I mean, I'm sure they could repurpose it if they ever left, but it was really cool to see that. And yeah, I generally found the show to be very playful, fun, great for kids. They had a lot of kid audience members, but they also had a lot of adult audience members. I would say for me, it was a little less enjoyable simply because I had watched Penn and Teller's magic course on masterclass.com. So I didn't complete it, but I watched enough of it that I kind of learned how certain tricks were done. And because of that, it makes it a little less enjoyable when you know like how it's done, then it's like a little bit less like, it's a bit disappointing when you know the truth about how things are forced. But nonetheless, for most of the audience who's never seen this type of show, maybe it's their only time in their life when they're going to Vegas and they have no reference to magic, it's going to blow their mind sometimes. Sometimes the audience was kind of confused though, or they just give light applause. But I think towards the end, some of the bigger magic tricks were kind of pretty impressive. And so through that, the audience was just like, whoa. And yeah, there's definitely still some acts where I was just like, how did they do that? That was really cool. I have no idea. And some of it was sleight of hand, object generation, and then other stuff was literally like, them predicting or mind reading in a way. So that was really cool to see. Now, once again, if you like this kind of family-friendly, playful act, this is a great show. They will poke fun at themselves at times. So there will be, like I mentioned, a handful of gimmick routines where part of the routine or all of it is like done awful on purpose, and it really gives like a chuckle, and there's so much interaction with the audience. They literally have one routine where you're asked to read out loud dialogue from the screens while they're going on with their routine to kind of heckle them. So it'll make sense if you ever see the show. And I think the last thing I really liked about it is that it is constantly changing. For me, since I am living in Vegas now, I want to go back and see the show potentially at some point. And unfortunately for a lot of these shows, it's a one and done experience because they don't change their routines. You come back 5 years later or whatnot, and it's this exact same show, because why change anything when it's a moneymaker? But Penn said from the start of the show that they love doing new stuff, and so they're always adding new tricks and new gigs to their show. Despite that, just because they love doing it, and so if you come back like a year later, it'll be a completely new show. If you come back a couple months later, you might see like one or two routines that are completely different. So I really like that because, for a local, like it's like once you see it all, it's like you're done with it. So that's one of those things that's just like, like now what? So that's going to be really cool to see some new things. Hopefully they stay true to that. And yeah, this is also a different show in the sense that it's less theatrical, and like music and mystery and mist than like, some of the other shows in Vegas, where it's very dramatic and stuff like that, in the sense that not only all the things I said about the playful nature, but Penn is talking a lot throughout the show, as you might expect. And he's kind of matter of fact, even maybe formal or serious about it. He'll go on a spiel for like 5 minutes or maybe not that long, 3 minutes or so, just talking about like some of the stuff I just said, how he likes adding new stuff. They both like adding new tricks to the show, and then explaining how many other shows don't do that. And so it's more so him just talking to the audience for a good portion of the show, rather than the mystery and the music and the smoke of some of these other dramatic shows where it's more about storytelling and music, and then the build up and stuff like that. It's more about this like fun, playful nature of it, and you'll see that even in the background music. They have a live piano player, and they're playing kind of like old school, you know American piano music that you might have heard at like some parlor in like the 60s or something. So it's that type of music, and then when they do the whole band routine, it's kind of like this dun, 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 the kind of like jazz rock and roll type of music scene. So that's the type of vibe and energy of the show. If you like that style, if you love that stuff, check out the show. I thought it was really fun. If they really changed the routines completely, I for sure would come back a second time. And it was really playful and fun. I wish these shows were longer, but a lot of these shows are like the same length of time. And is it worth sitting up front? Is it worth spending more money to do that? I sat balcony seats because they were cheaper, and I had a blast. I will say that if you can afford it, and you can sit on the front row, anywhere like mid to front, you'll probably have a pretty good chance of being called on. And especially if you're enthusiastic and you raise your hand immediately and you wave it. I would say in total, throughout all the routines that were done, I would say a good like 20 to 30 people were called up on stage in an interactive way. And then if you include the last routine where he called up like, I would say a tenth of the audience, so like 30 people, then like that's like 50 people he's called up. But the last routine was more just for them to like spectate it. So it wasn't as interactive. So yeah, it's a good amount of people they call up to be somewhat interactive. So if you want that, or if you just want to see them closer up, then yeah, and you can afford it, why not splurge for the more pricey ticket up front? So overall, I give it a thumbs up. I'm not going to give it like a number rating or anything like that. It's thumbs up or thumbs down for me, and this is definitely getting 2 thumbs up. I really enjoyed it. I expected to enjoy it, and really, I do think that while certain things could be tightened up a little bit, I felt like it was pretty solid professional magic. It's magic that deserves to be paid for. They worked really hard for this. There's a whole crew behind them, and I think it's incredible work, and that's why I came to see a good show, and I got a good show. Only slight things that I would tighten up are like maybe some of the routines. I think like a couple of the routines were confusing, and the way they were described to like one of the kids in the audience that was called up, you could tell the kid was just confused the whole time through, just because like it was a lot of instructions yelled at the kid, not yelled, but like said affirmatively and repeatedly. And yeah, I think a couple of the kids were just lost on stage, but at least the audience got the jokes, right? So that's the thing. It was still a little bit confusing at times for the audience, but for the most part, the audience loved it. I loved it. 2 thumbs up.